say you're like a level 9,000 animator, right? Against another 9,000 animator, it's going to be your attitude and your demeanor and your workplace vibe that separates you.
Hey guys, welcome to Inside Comics with George Michail. Today, I'm really psyched. My guest is Dax Gordine. Dax, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, George. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah. So you are an artist that based in the Niagara Falls area, and you have a new Kickstarter out about called Forest Folk, which is a collection of your webcomic that you've been doing for the last few years.
Yeah, that's right.
And previous to that, you were working in animation. You worked on like almost Osmosis Jones, and you worked on like Looney Tunes Back in Action. Lots of cool projects. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the skills that an artist needs to have to work for like a big animation studio.
Well, for me, other than luck and determination, I guess I'm a perfect poster child for that. I did okay. Like I went to Sheridan College for animation and graduated in 2000. So I did the traditional animation program and came out of that, as we all did, with like a big kind of show and tell kind of thing of your work, and all the studios come and look and whatnot. And I think I got an interview, or I somehow forced myself into an interview with Yowza Animation. And they were a studio in Toronto that was doing feature film work as a satellite studio, getting work in and whatnot, of like a bunch of the studios in Toronto were. And then, so I ended up going there, had a great interview, and long story short, I basically would call them every week to say, hey, it's me. How's everything going? I really would love to come. Hopefully everything's cool over there. If you got any work, let me know. And they're wicked guys over there. They're three brothers that ran it, and they eventually let me in. Long story short of that, again, is that I got to do in-between stuff on Osmosis Jones, which is where it started. But basically, I had to have it was animation background, and them just letting me try, letting me cut my teeth under it, because I did a lot of learning, a lot of drawing learning at that studio. So, I mean, animation background, I guess, and desiring to do it is a bit harder these days, I think, with the way the industry is. But I mean, really, it just comes down to I had training in animation, and I went for it. So,
is it like 2D animation, 3D animation?
No, yeah, it was 2D animation. Yeah, like I studied traditional animation, which was the Disney style, flipping pages, all that kind of stuff. And that's what Osmosis Jones was. It was like near the very end of when animated films were being made like that. Now there's like a resurgence kind of coming back, but yeah, I kind of graduated right at the time of 3D kind of really taking over. So, I mean, I guess it's still the same advice. I mean, like if you want to get into animation, there's plenty of 3D studios out there. A lot of my friends and college mates and stuff like that ended up going into 3D because it was, more viable, but they just had to learn the tools, because really computer animation is the same as 2D in the sense that, the principles are all the same. So I would assume for the most part. So a lot of the times, especially back in the beginning of 3D animation, they were really looking for 2D artists, which was where all the experience was, to take that to the new tool, which was computer animation. So nowadays you can actually just start learning animation in 3D, but sometimes a lot of the basics were a lot stronger back in the day from 2D coming over. I'm not sure how it is now. I'm sure the programs have become a lot more intense and a lot more helpful in that sense of like actually teaching fundamentals of animation and stuff. And I'm sure that's not as much of an issue as it used to be. But yeah, so
it seems like there's just so much competition for that work. Like
I would assume so. I've been out of that industry for a while. I mean, this is why I'm probably sounding a bit rusty on it, but like I did that for, I'd say 3 years. So like I've worked on about 3 or 4 projects with Yowza, and that was usually once every 6 months, right? So I'd work on something for 3 or 4 months, then the project would end, right? Because we only got a chunk. As a satellite studio, you'd get a chunk of scenes of a film to be made, and some would be sent to Europe and some would be sent to like just different houses around, right? It was how the films were working back then. And so we'd do our chunk and then we'd be finished. So I was one of the extra animators, right? The young guys that they didn't need to keep on for the very small amount of work. So I would just be let go and brought back. So eventually it got to the point where I was like, well, I got offered a job doing computer animation in video games. So that I kind of went, okay, well, this is full time, and I'll leave that industry for now. I've kind of done. I've got my teeth, or my teeth wet, hands wet, whatever it is in that industry.
Your teeth cut.
Teeth cut in the industry, or cut my teeth in there. And went and did some computer animation for video games, which was a whole other story. I'm sure we don't have the time for that, but I only learned what I needed to get my job done, if you know what I'm saying. I was actually very bad at that, but it was still a lot of fun.
What are these studios looking for specifically in an artist, other than having like a killer portfolio?
Right. Well, like I said, I mean, if there's anything that I can say for me personally that lends itself to this, because I'm not probably the best example, is that the animation gig that I got was because I learned a lot in the industry, in the sense of people really do want to work with people that they like and people that are nice and able to do their job and be good at their job. Is obviously, I mean, there's obviously a whole spectrum, right? But if you're a great, here's the point, if you're a great animator or a great artist that's a jerk, you're probably not going to get asked back into a studio situation where people, there's other people that could take that spot, right? Because if people are going to rather work with somebody they like, it's an old saying, and it's true. It really is true. So if you're like an arrogant, cocky animator, unless you're like the best, you're probably not going to stay in the industry or in that studio scene or whatever like that. So that, and being just kind of like, I was really kind of a go-getter, like, hey, I really, I was really into the studio and I really wanted to get there, and I was willing to learn all that kind of stuff, being very humble, as well as having a good portfolio, should be
seems
what
very much like comic books too, right? Like comic books,
for sure.
How do you get published? Well, you meet publishers, you're nice to them, they like you, you have good work. And it sounds very similar, as far as,
the arts are kind of like that. I've been finding, like, just all over art is like that. You know what I mean? I can imagine it goes into music and movies and all that kind of stuff. It's just kind of like a life thing, right? If you have the skills to do it and you're good at what you do, really the only thing that separates you from somebody of equal footing in that field, say you're like a level 9,000 animator, right? Against another 9,000 animator, it's going to be your attitude and your demeanor and your workplace vibe that separates you, right? So
the other thing I think is, like, answering emails, being professional, these sort of things really factor into a lot.
Of course, yeah. Well, I factor that into your personality and how you are as an employee, right? So how you handle being an employee is probably pretty important. Because if you get the work done and somebody else gets the work done, you're both the same level of awesome. If you're late and you don't answer emails and stuff like that, and the other person does, they're probably going to say, well, if I only have enough scenes for one, I'm going to keep that person. It's just the way it is. It's just work, right? So, yeah.
All right. Let's dive into Forest Folk, because this is your project that is on Kickstarter right now, and it looks fantastic. You've been building this webcomic for the last 5 years. And you have like 105 pages collected.
Yep.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. So this is just like any other artist out there, you kind of get sometimes a desire to make your own thing, right? We all work 9 to 5 doing jobs for other people, and then at the end of the day, you're kind of like, I want to do my thing. So I finally kind of landed on this thing about 5 years ago, where I created a couple of characters over a few Inktober's. I don't know if you know what Inktober is, but it's an artist. Most artists out there will understand an Inktober, the great Jake Parker that started that years ago, basically drawing one thing a day, and kind of I use it as a very creative platform to kind of just invent things and kind of make things up. So at the end of a couple of these in around 2015, I accumulated 2 characters, and I also that year for Christmas ended up getting revisiting Calvin and Hobbes. I got like a collection edition for Christmas. So I was reading that and going, oh, this is so great. I would love to be able to do this. And I grew up on this stuff, and yeah, it'd be great. wait a minute. Oh, I could probably do like 1 page of something like this a week. What if I take, Thomas and Filbert, who became friends in my last Inktober, and kind of like, started writing little jokes with them and made it like a Saturday morning paper comic kind of thing. And that's pretty much how it happened. So I've been doing it since December 31st of my birthday of 2016 or something like that. So it's been a while. And I've always wanted to make a book. And through Raid Studios in Toronto, we basically kind of collaborated on making this happen, because I had all the material there and I was like, I want to make this, but I'm kind of like, I don't Kickstarter and stuff and work and and the folks over there have really helped me kind of get this together and make it a thing. So the Kickstarter is live right now. It's crushing it right now. We've already hit our goal, so the book is going to get made. So if you go and buy a book, it's happening. We're now going to stretch goals, and awesome stretch goals. Like we just passed a spot gloss cover on the book, so it's gonna have that cool look where like when you lift, like parts of it feel velvety when like you and then you look at it and like the characters kind of pop off the page a little bit and stuff, and just fun little stuff like that makes it really awesome. And yeah, I would love for people to, if they're into Saturday morning kind of newspaper comics, like the old Garfields or Calvin and Hobbes and stuff like that. This is what my version of that. So,
and can you tell me a little bit more about who these two characters are and what kind of adventures they have?
Absolutely. Well, Thomas the sketching elf is what I call him, and he's basically a little baby looking little Keebler elf guy, and he doesn't talk, but he's always happy. Well, he's not always happy, but he's kind of running around doing his own thing. He's kind of like a little kid, and he's got like a magic pen, and he can, whatever he draws will pop off the little parchment page that he draws on. So things like, hey, if you want to have like some milk and cookies or whatever like that, he draws it and pops off in snack time, right? So there's that guy, little Thomas, and then Filbert, who is this fox, and he's just a fox character, and he's kind of a pretty into himself, pretty kind of I know what everything kind of guy, and him and Thomas are good friends, but so there's kind of a thing that goes between them where basically they're a great relationship, because Filbert's kind of that annoying, aggressive, kind of like in your face kind of guy, and Thomas just kind of sits there and goes along for the ride, and it's like, oh, everything's great, whatever, blah blah. And so they get into some kind of adventures and whatnot. There's also plenty of other characters that have been added over the past 5 years. Like there's a Benny the Bunny, who's kind of the science geek of the forest, and there's Ollie the otter, who's kind of the goofy dumb otter who can't swim, so he wears water wings, stuff like that. Barry the barista, who owns a coffee shop. He's a big bear who owns a coffee shop in the forest. So just, it's kind of like an everyday kind of look into that world in the forest. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad, sometimes, most of the times it's funny and goofy and stuff like that. So there's a little rundown for you.
No, it sounds amazing. And I know the guys at Raid Press, they put out quality stuff, and
Oh yeah.
And so that they're putting out your book, I know it's going to be fantastic. So I encourage everyone to go into the description. There's going to be a link to the Kickstarter, and click it and go and check out the project. And there's a video there. You can watch the video describing more about the project too. So Dax Gordine, I want to thank you for being on Inside Comics, and hopefully you'll come back again.
I would love to, George. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to all the Kickstarter backers who've backed so far, and hopefully some new people that check this out. And yeah, I hope you have a great day, man. I appreciate chatting with you.
Thanks. Peace.